Clara Bennett had always lived a simple life. Her days began with the sound of chalk against a blackboard, the laughter of children in her classroom, and the quiet walk home to her tiny apartment. She was 32, a dedicated schoolteacher in the small town of Elmridge, and though she loved her job, she carried a deep ache inside, a yearning for a family of her own. She wanted to be a mother, but years of putting her career first, failed relationships, and life's cruel timing had left her alone. It was a cold Thursday afternoon when the school principal called her into the office. "Clara," he began, "our largest donor, Alexander Knight, has requested a meeting with you. He's interested in expanding the scholarship program you've been working on." Clara hesitated. She had heard the name before, Alexander Knight, billionaire, business tycoon, and a man with a reputation for being as cold as the steel his fortune was built on. Still, the thought of securing funding for her underprivileged students was too important to pass up. She agreed. The next day, she found herself standing in the gleaming lobby of Knight Enterprises, surrounded by marble floors and towering glass walls. A sharply dressed assistant escorted her up to the 47th floor. When the elevator doors opened, she was met with a panoramic view of the city, and a man standing with his back to her, hands in his pockets, shoulders squared. He turned, and she saw him clearly for the first time. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, with piercing gray eyes that seemed to read her thoughts. "Miss Bennett," he said, his voice deep and deliberate. "Thank you for coming." She shook his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. "Mr. Knight, it's an honor." He motioned for her to sit. "Let's get to the point. I've read your file. You're passionate about your work, dedicated, and you have no connections to the press or the upper circles of society. You're exactly what I need." Clara frowned. "What you need?" "I need a wife," he said plainly. She blinked, stunned. "I'm sorry, what?" "I run a global corporation. There's pressure from my board to project stability, to settle certain disputes with an image of family values. A marriage will serve that purpose." His gaze didn't waver. "And before you protest, I know what you want too." Her heart tightened. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you want a child," he said, his tone almost gentle. "I can give you that. A secure future. Financial stability. You give me what I need, I give you what you want." Clara's cheeks flushed with anger. "I am not a business transaction." "Think about it," he replied, leaning back. "No messy emotions, no broken promises. Just an arrangement that benefits us both." She stood. "This is insane." And without another word, she left. 4 days, she tried to forget the encounter. But his words lingered. Every night, she returned to her quiet apartment, to the silence that seemed louder than ever. She thought of her students, of the possibilities if she had his resources. And deep down, she thought of the ache in her heart, the longing for a child. A week later, she was back in his office. "I'm not agreeing," she said firmly. "But I want to understand." He slid a document toward her. The contract was precise, almost clinical, outlining terms about privacy, living arrangements, and expectations. But at the very end, in his own handwriting, was a single sentence: "No child will be raised without love." She looked up. "You wrote this?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Because I grew up without it." For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold calculation, something almost vulnerable. They married in a private ceremony. There were no lavish parties, no headlines. Clara moved into his sprawling estate by the ocean, a place so grand it felt like another world. At first, their life together was distant. They had dinner each night, but conversation was polite, cautious. He worked late hours, she spent her time adjusting to the quiet opulence. One stormy evening, the power flickered out. She found him in the study, staring at the rain. "I hate storms," he said softly. "Why?" she asked. "They remind me of being powerless," he admitted, without thinking. She touched his arm. He didn't pull away. It was the first time she felt the walls between them shift. Weeks turned into months. They began sharing small pieces of themselves, her telling him about her students' antics, him showing her how to make his favorite espresso, both of them walking the beach at dawn. The contract stayed in place, but it began to feel like a formality rather than a boundary. The day she told him she was pregnant, he froze. Then, slowly, he knelt in front of her, resting his forehead against her stomach. "Thank you," he whispered. You've given me something I never thought I'd have." Her eyes stung with tears. She had promised herself she wouldn't fall for him, but her heart was no longer listening. Alexander changed after that. He attended every doctor's appointment, built a nursery with his own hands, and left work early just to sit with her. On the night their daughter was born, Clara saw the unthinkable, the cold billionaire crying, holding their baby girl. He looked at Clara with raw emotion. "This wasn't part of the deal," he said hoarsely. "But I love you. I love both of you." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I love you too." The contract that had once bound them became meaningless. What began as a calculated arrangement had turned into the very thing they never believed they would find: love, family, and a home filled with warmth. As the sun rose the next morning, Alexander took her hand, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "No more deals. No more contracts. Just us. Always."